Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sunday. Yes, hello. And joining me today is none other than Financial Missy once again.
Hello, hey
Hello.
guys, how are you guys doing?
Yep, hope everyone is enjoying their Sunday so far. Yep, and we are here once again, to share another US stock. And I'm sure this US stock, all of y'all who have heard of it. In fact, I think most of us have used something from here before. Yep, so it's none other than Amazon. Yay! So yeah, Amazon is a big cap US stock. Yep, and it has fallen quite a fair bit since the start of this year. Yep, as with a lot of other US stocks. Yep, so I'm guessing I'm sure everyone is wondering right at this time whether is this a good time to actually enter one of these US stocks, one of these big cap, fundamentally strong or seemingly so fundamentally strong US stock, right? So we are here to address your queries, and we'll try to in this session try to analyze and see whether is it a good time to actually buy this share now, right? So without further ado, let me hand the time over to Financial Missy, to actually go through with us some of the details for this Amazon stock. Yep, over to you, Financial Missy.
Right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right, so basically, I did not know, like when previously last week when Leslie was actually suggesting this song to us, I was like, Amazon, seriously, Amazon? Yeah, so the reason behind it is because I actually had this affinity with Amazon before, like maybe like 2 years back. When I was still doing trading. So people who doesn't know my background is I've been investing trading for the past decade, past 10 years. So I started off with doing a lot of trading. Then I decided to actually switch over to investing. And Amazon itself, right, surprisingly has a lot of fluctuation in the stock itself that caused me a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and and most importantly in trading is something that you cannot have that much emotions involved because once the stock goes up and because of greed you decided to wanting to ride it further upwards, and who knows, it goes downwards, and then you go, oh no, your stock goes down and you feel sad, you feel depressed, and you're hopeful for the stock to go up. Of which during then when I was doing trading, I saw it going down and further down and further down. I got so upset that I decided to just sell it all. So looking forward, like in 2020 was a very good year for stocks, and Amazon actually went all the way up, and I lost the opportunity there. So it's all because of my own, psychology of trading. Hence, I decided that I'm better off doing being an investor. So so since I have so much affinity with Amazon, but unfortunately I decided not to re-enter Amazon because of the past history. But because of this particular webinar, I actually did a bit of preparations on Amazon's the fundamentals, the technicals. I was like, actually Amazon is quite an awesome company to enter. So I was like, maybe I should, reconsider my options with Amazon itself. So without further ado, let me just share my screen and show you guys what do I have for you guys. Right, so I would go here. Yeah, sharing directing. Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, and let me play. Right, so Amazon itself, on last Friday, Amazon actually closed at $2,879. It's actually quite wonderful considering that the market actually dropped a lot, and on Friday itself, it actually had a bit of a rebound. But is it a confirmation? We do not know until the end of my session, right? So on Friday itself, it actually went up by 86 dollars itself, and it constitutes about 3% of Amazon stocks, right? And look at the chart. The chart has been pretty much volatile for the past 1 year. It's a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Something like Tesla, but I would say that Amazon has a better fundamentals there. So, nevertheless, Amazon itself it's not for the faint-hearted. So, for people who actually wants to go Amazon, you need to have a bit of I don't know, a strong heart, iron heart there to actually be able to ride out the volatility. Yeah. Okay, so first and foremost, I will talk about the microeconomy, but so far there's nothing much of a changes over there. Omicron is still ongoing, rising interest rate fears is still there, and Fed actually suggested that they will increase the interest rate as soon as March. So there is still no confirmation of what's not to how many percent it is. So the fear is still there. Market sentiment is still not very good, I would say. And of course, currently we are in the market correction, right? S&P itself is down about 10%, Dow Jones is about 8% down, and Nasdaq is about 20 something, 27% if I'm not wrong downwards, right? So market sentiment is definitely not there. We are definitely in the correction right now. So this is the market sentiment for so far. Okay, and indicators wise for the market, I just draw a very simplified two lines over there. We know that currently, if we are looking at the long-term trend, medium to long-term trend, the market is still quite bullish, right? Because the purple line is above the blue line, simple as that. However, there's a very recent dip in the market for both for S&P and Dow Jones. So on the left side is S&P, and on the right side is actually Dow Jones, right? So actual market is actually had a very sharp decline, of which should the market actually gets better, it needs to go through a phase of consolidation first before it goes up. But who knows whether the market will actually go down further? This one we really do not know. Okay, so for S&P itself, double bottom twice already. Do not know whether we rebound. We need to have a very clear signal. Dow Jones itself has to see more fluctuations over there, right? It has more than double bottoms already. So is it an indicator it will go downwards further? That's for another day, right? So for Amazon itself, how is the business doing, right? We know that Amazon is actually a very wonderful company. It's like, tell me something that Amazon doesn't do. Actually got a lot lah. But basically Amazon is actually doing a lot of retail sales of consumer products, even online, even in retail stores, although we don't see retail stores in Singapore. But yes, we do have like Amazon itself do have like online stores and retail stores. And it is actually like a platform for a third party to actually sell their products, promote their products online. And they do a lot of data analytics services as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, and then they also have this thing called Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure that everybody knows it. Amazon Prime for logistics and transportations. Hit a certain price or you join their premium membership, you'll be able to actually get this free delivery. And last but not least, they do offer online streaming as well. So, wow, like when you're talking about things online, is there something that Amazon doesn't do? If you're talking about things relating to technology, is there something that Amazon doesn't do? If you guys can think of something, just pop in the chat over there. Personally, I can't think of anything that Amazon doesn't do because it's really so awesome. So itself is the sector wise is under consumer discretionary for you guys who doesn't know, right? And we forward, right? We look at good fundamentals. How's company actually doing? Looking at the financial statement, three components: income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow. Actually, doesn't really require much of my explanation. Amazon itself, right? Without me explaining much, we all know that Amazon is already a good company, really, right? So if I really do have to actually evaluate, right, the net profit is actually good. Okay. Year on year, the total revenue increases, net income also increases. If I'm not wrong, the earning per share should be about 18% there, but which is damn awesome, right? And then looking at the balance sheet, current ratio is more than one, which is good. Debt to equity ratio is slightly above one, which is not that good. But considering the scale of Amazon, I think it's you can close one eye. Price to book ratio, if I'm not wrong, is 3 point something, which is also very good, right? Then what about cash flow? Everything is actually doing very well. Cash for investment, probably Amazon is actually doing a lot of investments right now. I mean, sorry, over the years. That's why the returns are not seen yet. But the free cash flow is definitely very good. It's very healthy for this particular company itself. So in terms of valuation, right? Is Amazon currently a very strong company? Is it time to enter? I'm actually pretty much intrigued, because I never knew this. The intrinsic of Amazon itself is 3,331. And for my very first slide, right, we know that Amazon actually cost 2.8K there about currently right now on Friday itself. So according to price to sales ratio, Amazon is so undervalued. But is it a good time to enter? That's a question you need to ask yourself, right? So when you want to talk about entering a market itself, you want to look at technical analysis. Because at technical analysis, you're able to tell us the trend, whether Amazon is rebounding or it's going downwards or is it going in consolidation whatsoever. Okay, so looking at the chart as a big whole, as an overall for the past this one is slightly more than 1 year, we see that definitely Amazon actually went through quite a substantial period of consolidation, starting from last year, June, July, there about all the way to this year, January, and of which, because of the market sentiments and all, Amazon had a very, very deep drop. Okay. And Friday itself, we saw a green candlestick, of which the green candlestick bar is actually a bullish bar. Okay. So there might be a chance that Amazon rebounds. Okay, there might be a chance. But then the question here is Amazon dropped so much as a gap. There wasn't a gap down, but there was a very major dip from the purple line to the blue line, and of which on Friday itself is almost touching the blue line really. Am I confident that Amazon itself has actually attained definite rebound? It is only if on Monday itself the stock opens above the green bar. Okay. But nevertheless, in Amazon itself, as you guys know, as I have actually mentioned it over and over again, Amazon itself is very, very volatile. So would I be surprised if actually Amazon dips further to the other black lines as I drawn in the chart itself? I'm totally not surprised. Okay. To be very honest, I'm totally not surprised because it's Amazon per se. But if anyone who actually wants to enter the market, considering the fact that Amazon is actually currently undervalued and you guys have the money to actually invest in Amazon, what is stopping you? Right? What is stopping you? I mean, as in, if you are really that convicted and you know that Amazon is able to grow to a greater heights, that's something you can consider, right? So last but not least, just wanted to give some gifts to you guys because it's almost Chinese New Year and 恭喜发财. So I would like to actually give you guys this my own personal top 3 stocks to actually look out for in 2022. You guys can actually key in the link bit.ly financial in caps Missy and follow me in my Instagram, Facebook pages, and I will actually consolidate my top 3 stocks portfolio, and I'll actually share it with you guys openly, right? So whatever I said earlier, it is not a definite buy or sell suggestion. Please do your own due discretion because Amazon itself is very volatile. There's a lot of factors for you guys to consider. And without further ado, actually I would like to pass on the time to our dear trade engineer to actually tell us, if you are looking at a more shorter term aspect, how can we actually make money out of Amazon? So, trade engineer, please.
All right. Thanks, FINANCIAlmissy, for the great insight into Amazon. Yep. And yes, I'm here to address your questions on trading, especially on the short term aspect of trading. Right. So, without further ado, let me share my screen. All right. Yes. So here's my screen, and yes, as what the FINANCIAlmissy has shown in the price chart earlier, Amazon has actually dropped quite a fair bit. To be exact, it's actually retraced about 27% from its peak, right? So, usually we want to buy it when it's cheap, right? And it appears to be that there's a discount now, right? So the question here is whether this discount is worth grabbing, right? Or should we actually wait and get it at a bigger discount in future, right? So we want to know what is the future price action of this stock and how will it actually pan out in future. Yep. All right. So, but before I do, right, let me first go through a little bit on our last week's stock analysis, Verizon. Yep. Because I'm sure some of you who have followed our last video might be curious to know how did it pan out since then, since our analysis last week. Right, I'll attach, for those of you who didn't watch the video last week, I'll attach, the link to last week's video in the description box or in the comments box below after this video. Right. So let me quickly just go through, what has happened for Verizon. So just to recap, right, this was the price chart I showed last week for Verizon communications. Yep. So I draw a few trend lines over here. The downtrend trend line, the long-term one, the short-term downtrend trend line, as well as the uptrend trend line over here, right? So as I was saying at that time, it was forming higher lows, and it was on the verge and higher highs, and so it was on the verge, right, of actually breaking up and forming, going the uptrend, right? But of course, I also mentioned then that, if the price breaks below this uptrend line, then we have to be wary and we have to be careful that it might actually, the stock price might actually go down, right? And another thing to take note was also the MACD, that it was negative at that time. Yep, so, just to recap again, that time what I mentioned, so it remains supported by the uptrend trend line, higher lows, higher highs for the recent prices. But the bear side of things was it had not crossed that downtrend trend line, and the MACD was negative, as well as the whole market correction was still ongoing at that time. So what did I mention then, right? Last week, I also mentioned that there was the upcoming earnings on 25th of January. Yep, and also we have to observe carefully after that, right? We should observe what's the earnings, and also on the technical side of things, if the uptrend trend line remains supported, or if the price crosses the short-term downtrend trend line, then we might be interested to place a long entry, right? So what happens, right? After that, after I was sharing last week. So this is what happened, right? This is the updated chart. So you can see, right, the next day on Monday, it actually fell below this uptrend trend line, right? And on 25th January, the next day, it was still a red candle. Yep, the day of the earnings result. And shortly after the earnings result, it actually went down, right? So actually, we weren't interested in this trade anymore. And you can see that the MACD was it turned even more negative since then. Yep. So this is basically what what I'd like to actually mention is that this actually shows the importance of technical analysis, in the sense that once this uptrend trend line breaks, you can see that immediately after that, a few days after that, it actually fell. Price actually fell back, even though the last trading day it actually went covered back to the previous price, right? But in the immediate term, it actually fell. So what was the news, right? The news that came out on 25th January was actually very positive. So based on investing.com, what it mentioned was actually, the earnings actually beat estimates, both the revenue as well as the profits. Basically, it beat the estimates in the fourth quarter. However, you saw, on the price chart, they actually dropped. The price actually dropped. And so, the next day news actually came out that it was because one particular company, JP Morgan, actually downgraded it on its outlook, outlook, in the future, right? So they're actually looking at the future instead of what happened in the past. Hello, hello, can you hear me? Yes, sorry, I got disconnected for a while there. Yep. Okay. So as I was saying, right. So this shows the importance of actually not buying a stock on news, right? We should always do our own due diligence and not follow the news because the news is always what happened in the past. Yep. So that concludes a summary of what happened for Verizon Communications. And before I move on to the next segment on our sharing today, please don't forget to like, comment, and share this video so that more people would benefit from our sharing and analysis. Yep. So moving on to today's stock, right, on Amazon, right? So I'm sure you saw the price chart earlier from FINANCIAlmissy, and you can see that actually, the stock had actually plunged down, right? In fact, on the 21st of January, it was making even low it was plunging even further, right? So why was this the case? So let's look back at some of the news, right? To get some insight into what had happened on that the past few trading days. So when that happened, this particular news, yep, actually mentioned that some reasons for why the stock has actually slipped, right? So some of the reasons attributed was because the revenue growth had decelerated, and then basically Amazon has also guided a further slowdown in the fourth quarter. Yep, and additionally, right, there's also this earnings result. So this is something as a question mark. People are not sure. They're expecting that maybe the results are going to be bad. Yep. So that is why some of the reasons why the stock had actually dropped. Yep. So in further details, right? Actually, if you have been looking at the U.S. stock market recently, you will know that actually the whole market is actually down. The S&P 500 is down. Nasdaq Composite is down. Basically, the whole tech sector is actually down. So this, of course, Amazon being one of the big tech companies is also not spared from this, right? So it has also dropped. So that was also another reason, the macroeconomic point of view, how the macro has panned out. So it also affected individual stocks like Amazon. Yep. And another thing also was Netflix. Yep. So if you have been watching Netflix as well, they also attributed that the drop could be a rub-on effect from Netflix. Yep. Because basically Netflix also had an earnings drop, and so that affected the whole tech market as well. Yep. So this was some of the news that was reported then to attribute the drop of Amazon, right? But what we want to figure out now is what is the future direction for Amazon? Yep. So to answer that, right, I'll be here to actually tell everyone what the technicals would tell us for the future, right? So let's without further ado, let's look at the price chart for further details. All right. Yep. So here we have the Amazon on the daily time frame, right? So over here I've drawn two lines. So we can first focus on this horizontal line over here. It signifies the resistance, right? So if we actually zoom out a bit further, right, we can actually see that this looks to be the strong support level that was tested on two occasions in the past, right? But now it has turned into a resistance. So this is actually a very key level to watch out for. And I also added in two indicators over here, right? I have the RSI and the MACD. The RSI on the daily chart is actually on the oversold position, right? It's actually below 30. And the MACD, right, is still negative. So this on one hand, when RSI oversold, it might be a good time to buy, right? But on the other hand, when MACD is negative, right, we have to be mindful that it might actually fall down further because that is a bearish sign. So, but if we look, we delve deeper, into this, let's go into the 1 hour time scale, right? A shorter time scale to analyze this stock a bit further. Yep. So if we zoom in, to the 1 hour time frame, right? You can see the same horizontal line as well as this uptrend trend line, which I haven't talked about it yet. So, when we zoom in on the 1 hour time scale, this makes a bit more sense, right? This uptrend trend line actually connects all the swing lows for the stock on a 1 hour time scale. So it makes up that uptrend trend line, right? So this whole pattern is actually called an ascending triangle pattern, and it can be pretty bullish, right? But it can only be bullish if it actually crosses this resistance level, right? So currently, right, it's actually consolidating within this ascending triangle pattern, right? So if it breaks above this horizontal line, then there could be some confirmation that the uptrend might be resuming. Yep. And on the other hand, right, if you see on this 1 hour time scale, we can also see that the MACD has actually turned positive, right? There was time where it was turning almost negative, you're going to cross, but it didn't. And it's the last candlestick, actually make it pretty positive, right? It looks like it's going up even further. Yep. So what will I do, right? What will I suggest to do for trading? And with that, to answer that, let me go back to my slides, so that you get a clearer idea. Right. So in summary, right, there's both the bull and bear arguments for Amazon. Yep. So as I mentioned earlier, we have to look on two time scales, right? On the daily time scale as well as on the hourly time scale. So we look at the daily side, right? First of all, we can see the RSI is also, which is good on the bullish side. However, additionally, right, on the bullish argument, if you zoom down into the hourly chart, you can see that there's a bullish ascending triangle pattern, and MACD is actually positive. And additionally, right, we also saw that there's higher lows, right? That's why we are able to draw that uptrend trend line. Yeah, but on the other hand, right, the bearish side of things, is still, you can argue that it's still consolidating, right? It's actually still consolidating, and it has not crossed the resistance, that horizontal line on both the short-term daily, the short-term hourly time scale, as well as the long-term daily time scale. The MACD is still negative on the daily chart, and overall, the macro outlook is still poor. Yep, there is still that market correction that remains at the back of our minds, so we have to be mindful of that. So what should we do for trading? Yep. So first of all, we have to note that the results for Amazon is out pretty soon. It's actually out next week, 3rd February. So for those of you who are risk adverse, you might actually want to wait for confirmation after the earnings release, because you never know how the earnings might turn out. Yep, it might actually be very poor, and the stock might actually get down the day after, right? So it might be a good choice to actually wait for earnings result, right? You don't have to play on earnings. Yep. But of course, after that, we have to, on the technical side of things, as what I mentioned, we have to wait for the price to actually break that key level. Yep, that resistance level. You have to break above that ascending triangle, so that we have the confirmation that the uptrend might be resuming. So that horizontal resistance level, right? We used to be the support last time, is around a level of 2,900 US dollars. Yep. So this is a key level, right? Because it used to be the long-term support level. So it'd be good to actually watch out for this level. Yep. And we can actually set our stop loss, right? As with trading, we should always set our stop loss. And what I suggest is actually to set this stop loss slightly below that uptrend trend line that I've drawn earlier on the hourly time scale, right? So to give you a bit of margin, I suggest about US 2,700, right? That could be a level. But of course, this is just my own opinion, right? Do not follow this blindly. Yep. As always, I need to remind all of you and urge all of you to do your own due diligence, right? This is just my own opinion. You have to do your own homework. You have to study on your own and see whether you're comfortable with this trade before you enter, right? Yes, and that concludes my sharing for Amazon. So if just a reminder here, right? If you like our sharing, don't forget to like and share our video, so that more people around you can benefit from our sharing. And our social media pages, right? I've shared this before, and I'll share this again. So we have our social media pages. I have a Facebook page, which you're watching now live, and in addition, I also have an Instagram and Twitter account. And FINANCIAlmissy also has her own Facebook page, so do follow her page if you haven't already, and her Instagram account as well. So handles are all shown here. Yep, and as always, please do comment and suggest what the next stock you would like us to share in our next sharing, which would be next Sunday as well. So as you all know already, we hold this every Sunday at 4 p.m. Singapore time. So next week will be on FINANCIAlmissy page, right? Yep, and that is all we have to share for today. Yes. All right.
Right, awesome. Thank you for sharing about your perspective on Mezzo itself. Very interesting perspective about it. So can I just ask one question? Because since I'm actually maybe might be looking at Amazon for my next, I don't know, stock pick, or I don't know, something like that. Right. So can I ask one question?
Sure, please go ahead.
Right. So just now when you were sharing, right? You were looking at hourly time chart.
Yep.
Right. So if I were to actually trade Amazon, although
Yep.
I don't really feel like trading, but if I were to trade Amazon, um, would you suggest to be done like hourly, 4 hourly, or daily time chart kind of system?
Oh, okay. So basically, I think the time scale represents the actually the period of time you're willing to hold this stock. So if you go down on a shorter time scale, that means you're actually only looking at holding this stock for a shorter period of time, right? So if you're looking at the daily chart, you're probably looking to hold for maybe a weeks or so. But if you're looking at hourly, I think most likely you're likely hold only for a day, a few days or so. Yep. So that is typically the guideline. So if you go, you can even go down further. You can go into the minute time frame or the and that there will even be like maybe
Right.
a scalp trader, right? You'll be like holding for only that day itself. Yeah.
Right. So for Amazon itself, what would you recommend the best time frame to actually trade Amazon?
I guess with the of course it depends on your risk level, right? So as of now, there's the earnings result that is coming up on the 3rd of February, right? So if you want a quick scalp, a quick trade before the earnings, you got to look at the shorter time scale, right? Before and probably exit your positions before the 3rd of February. Yep. But of course, if you are willing to, hold it a bit longer, after the earnings, then that will be more of an investing kind of thing. So you have to see the fundamentals as well. Yeah. So yeah, actually, I would suggest that if you are going to pick up this stock now, or rather tomorrow, then it best be on the shorter time scale because you would like to exit your positions before the earnings. Yeah, but if not, you can always wait till the earnings are released. Check the price chart again to see how is the price chart like, and then decide whether you want to place a longer you want to hold it for a longer period of time or you know actually go for a shorter trade. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's something probably we can all consider. I'm pretty sure that everybody out there who has been tuning in actually learned a lot from the trade engineer, and it's been very awesome to actually share his knowledge to us about how do we actually do trading for Amazon itself, regardless of time scales, time frame. There's actually a method for everyone to actually do trade into Amazon according to individual's risk appetite. So that's awesome. And I guess last but not least for my part is that for you guys out there, regardless of whether you guys are traders, whether you guys are investors, please do keep this in mind. Never ever learn from me to invest or trade with emotions. So that was my biggest takeaway from my 10 years of experience in trading investing. Do not act on emotions, right? I hope you guys learned something from us here. So hand over to you, the trade engineer.
Yep. Thanks, Financial Missy. Yes. So emotions, is very important to get it out of the way. I know it's very difficult, because all of us have emotions, and we sometimes we tell ourselves don't let emotion take over, but we still let emotion take over, right? Because it is part of us. It's we subconsciously let our emotions take over us. So we have to be clear, right? When we are trading, we have or trading or investing, we have to be mindful of the initial, impetus of why we actually make this trade or make this investment, right? And we follow strictly by that guideline, right? So we don't let the future price action change our direction in any way. Yep. So Yep, there's sometimes some people say there's a fine line between trading and gambling, right? So how does it become gambling? It is when you actually start to play fully on your emotions, right? You just buy and sell the stock based on how your emotions tell you to do, right? So that is literally gambling, and we should not fall into that trap, right? Because once that happens, you probably lose more than you win. Yeah. So, yep, very important, guys. So please take note. Please, don't let emotions take over you, whether is it trading or whether is it investing, right? So yeah, with that, right, it concludes our sharing for today. And as always, right, do remember to like, comment, and share this video, and suggest next talk for our next session, right? Like what Leslie did last week. Yeah, shout out to Leslie. Thanks for suggesting the Amazon stock to us. Yep. So do keep those ideas coming. Yep. Yeah. And let us know, right, in the comments below what next talk you would like us to share, right? So with that, right, for those who are in Singapore or are celebrating Chinese New Year next week, right? Happy Lunar New Year, 恭喜发财. Yes, have a
红包拿来。
prosperous year. Yes, hopefully get a big ampao from the trade market or the stock market. All
Yeah, that's very
right.
important. I think 2022, although we are going to see a lot of volatility in the market itself, but to get ang pao from the stock market is something certainly not impossible as long as you guys actually try it and knowing what you guys are actually doing. All right. So I guess we are good to go. Do like this post, this sharing, do share this sharing as well, and adios. We'll see you guys next week.
Adios. See you guys 4 p.m. next week, next Sunday. Bye.
拜拜，恭喜发财，发达！
Voila.